Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Muthu Kumar, and I'll be hosting the session for today's evening. So let's quickly get into the session. Right. Some of the etiquettes that we follow during the session is that may I request all of you to kindly mute your phones so that the session goes undisturbed, and possibly if we can sit in a place where we are not disturbed, that will be great. Also, if in case you have any questions, you can ask at the end of the session so that the flow is not disturbed. Or if in case you have questions in between, if the guest speaker is okay with it to answer, then you feel free to do that. Today's agenda is that we have welcome and introduction in the beginning, and then we'll have journey so far in Disciples India Group and Disciples India Learning Forum. And then we have a guest speaker's introduction, and then we have the session going on. Then what's our vision? To excel as a focused and fulfilling learning destination for new age growth aspirants. And our mission is we will be a practice-based professional training and consulting platform through novel and relevant process of transformation to individuals and organizations. And what are our core values? Honesty, hard work, healthy, honor, and happiness. Disciples India Group Learning Forum is happy to present a platform purely for the joy of learning. And Disciples objectives is to provide a platform to share and exchange ideas and experiences, to create and develop a personal and professional network of learners, to enhance effective communication and leadership skills, to foster learning and contribute for personal and professional and organizational development, to update with our life management skills, and contribute as an effective member to the society.
ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಇನ್ಫಾರ್ಮ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾವನೆ. 10th ವರೆಗೆ ಸಬ್ಮಿಟ್ ಮಾಡಬಹುದು ಪೇಪರ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ.
All of you to Mute yourself. Sorry.
ಅವ್ರು ಅಕಸ್ಮಾತ್ ಸಿನಿಮಾ ಕಾರ್ಯಕರ್ತರು ಅದನ್ನ
Here it is. Okay, Disciples India Learning Forum organizing committee members are Dr. A.M. Suresh, the advisor, Dr. Sandhya N, president. I play the role of vice president. Mr. Parthos, the secretary, and Dr. Satish, the joint secretary. Mr. Shiv Prasad, KM treasurer, and Akhilesh, the executive member. Disciples India Learning Forum sessions. So far, we did about in 2018, 24 sessions, 19, 25 sessions, and 20, we did about 24. And 21, we did about 8 sessions. So we did 98 sessions in the last 4 years. And this is a quick video of the sessions that we did in 2020. All right. So about today's session, the topic is critical thinking and curiosity. And our guest speaker is Saraswati Ramachandra. So today's session associate partner is Seshadripuram First Grade College, Yelahanka. So may I request Mr. Assistant Professor Jayant Hanumantaya to do the guest speaker introduction, please.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. So very good evening to one and all present here. So we are very much happy to be a part of Disciples India program, and thank you so much, sir, for giving an opportunity here. So Seshadripuram First Grade College, accredited to NAAC A grade, a premier educational institution founded in 1992, which is an academic fraternity of individuals dedicated to the motto of commitment to excellence. So our college, Seshadripuram First Grade College, comes under Seshadripuram Educational Trust, the pioneering educational trust of Karnataka, which was founded in 1930. The course is being sustained growth spanning of 9 decades. So our college offers undergraduate courses in science, computer science, commerce, and management, as well as postgraduate programs in commerce, as well as MCOM and MFA. So our post-graduation department of commerce and management is striving to be one of the best institution and trying to foster the holistic higher education program and research in commerce. So which is an institution where we pursue and promotes global excellence in the discipline of commerce. The curriculum and pedagogy has brought laurels to the institution to create the world-class academics in the field of commerce and business, which gets urged as an alumni of the department or well-placed in business, academics, and administration all across the globe. So this is all about an information of our college and department, that is post-graduation department of commerce and management. And today we are very happy to have Saraswati Ramachandra madam. So for this program, and now I introduce madam for the session. Very good evening, ma'am. We are very happy to have you for this wonderful program, and it's a great opportunity to listen to your words. As Madam Saraswati is a seasoned analyst, professional, and as well as a recognized expert in customer strategy for banking industry. She has 22 years of global experience with a deep focus on banking and financial services industry. She has spent significant part of his career in a variety of roles in companies such as Cisco, FICO, Accenture, and Wipro, enabling business impact through the application of analytics and data science and technology. In her current role, Saraswati leads the non-consumer banking analytics, which includes TTS, CCB, and CRS analytics, where she is responsible for establishing newer teams and capabilities along with delivering value to business and partners. In her previous roles, Saraswati Madam leads the Analytics Center of Excellence with focus on customer, risk, fraud, and business knowledge, data science, and technology with the focus to create value to customers. Madam is passionate about enhancing customer experience and formulating innovative-led growth strategies, embedding mindsets and process to enable innovation and find new opportunities for growth. Madam Saraswati has a vast knowledge of the information technology industry, working across culture in the fields of delivery management, program management, agile methodologies, and consulting. She has been a part of PMI Board of Directors, Bengaluru chapter. She is very active in GHC. So Madam has a master's in software engineering from BITS Pilani and an MBA in international business from Symbiosis. She was a guest lecturer for both MS and MBA for Manipal University. She has also authored textbook on project management for MBA for university and co-authored 2 books, that is Black Book on Exponential Technologies in 2019 and Innovation Black Book Enterprise 4.0 2020, which was published by Wille. So this is a brief introduction of Madam, and Madam is currently a director of Citibank. And once again, we are very happy to have Saraswati Ramachandra Madam for this excellent program. And I also thank Dr. Nodaja, Dr. Udepi Krishna sir, who is the secretary of Sheshadripuram Educational Trust, and Dr. Raji Pillai Madam, who is the director of Post-Graduation Department of Commerce and Management, Sheshadripuram First Grade College, and Principal Dr. S.N. Venkatesh sir, Sheshadripuram First Grade College. So once again, ma'am, it's over to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jayan sir, and thank you, Disciples India, for hosting me. A real pleasure to connect with you all. And I always believe that learning and sharing the knowledge should be the priority. And if we just go back to what a little bit of Sanskrit, it always says, Vidya dadati vinayam, kshanasha kanasha chaiva vidya artam chade. So there's so many proverbs, what we call subhashta in Sanskrit, which talks about acquiring knowledge. So having thought of it and doing this is a different level. So thank you, Disciples India, for doing such a session. Can I share my screen?
Sure. I will stop sharing my screen.
Yeah.
All right, now you can share the screen.
Just a minute. Just a minute, I'm having some issue.
Sure, no problem. Take your time. You can go for F5.
Yeah, are you able to see it though?
Yeah, we are able to see. You can probably make it a full screen, so we will be able to see it.
Yeah. Is it better?
Yeah, better. But it is just, I think the next slide, that one you can close it so that it will become a little bigger and people will be able to see it. So that should be seen. hide presenter view or
Yeah.
not?
Yeah.
Yeah. F5. Or yeah.
Is it still not full screen?
Yeah, not full screen. I think it should be no.
Is it fine now?
Yeah, not in a presenter mode. It's okay. I mean, if you can, I mean, we are able to see, but it is not in presenter mode, just for information. That's all.
Yeah, I don't know why it is not going to the.
I think it is function F5 also will go to.
Yeah,
if you
I
go to
have actually pressed the. It is in the
presenter
slideshow.
mode.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm able to see, but then why is it not going to? Would you want it to close and start again? Control.
Let me just do that. Yeah.
Yeah. Close off and open the PPT again. Sometimes it hangs in technology, you know.
Always a challenge.
Yes. As human beings, we need to take more challenges. So technology is also giving one for us. Excuse me.
Just a minute. I'm trying to
Sure.
see if there's any setting issues.
Sometimes it may be because of PPT or sometimes maybe because of Zoom.
Is it any better?
Yeah. The same board. Or is it somewhere here? One more settings probably. Screen pointer option. I think you can present it this way also because we can see the screen a little bigger.
I really wonder what's wrong.
Would you want it to convert it to PDF and put it on full screen so that you can go one by one the next slides also? One second, let's mute others. Or if you can share us the PPT.
No, in the same way, I mean, you can continue. The
Sorry?
same way you can continue. Keep explaining.
Yeah, it's
This is
okay,
okay for
right?
us.
Can I? Yeah, okay. Let me just start then.
Yeah.
What I want to cover today is really the 2 C's of success, right? One what I call as critical thinking. The other one is the curiosity. It goes hand in hand. Most of the things that I will be talking about is really if I talk about critical thinking, obviously the methods used creates curiosity. Combined together is the mantra for success, right? Am I able to interact with people, or is it?
You can. Depends on if you wanted to interact, you can take it forward.
Sure. So essentially, I don't want to ask what is critical thinking from your perspective, right? In the audience perspective, I want it to be interactive because otherwise you can Google something, listen to it in the YouTube, or there are multiple sources you have. But I think interaction leaves a different kind of learning. So I don't want to make it interactive. I want people to be able to answer some of the things that we ask or you ask questions, right? So what is critical thinking for you?
Thinking out of the box or going in depth of the subject.
Sure. Thanks, Salim.
First of all, ask a question in a particular situation starting, asking question to the people. If people are there, if circumstances are there, then asking what is happening, why it is happening. It starts with the questions, I think.
Absolutely, Javed. That's part of the techniques of how we do the critical thinking.
It's more of analysis, evaluation, and judgments.
Sure.
May I request all of the other folks to kindly mute so that the session is understood? Yes.
I think bits and pieces we have covered, right? Critical thinking is what we commonly call as problem solving. So if you take any business, we are in the business to solve a particular problem. It can be customer problem. It can be enhancing profitability for an organization, or it can be how do we get better results as a school or an institute, right? Anything that we are doing is actually solving for a particular problem. So critical thinking is really helping solve the problem. Like I think Javed said, it's not being happy with first solution that comes, but thinking more deeply into knowing, understanding, analyzing, synthesizing, applying, and then evaluating the idea or the problem solution to the problem, which is looking beyond what is obvious, right? So which is a deeper thinking, asking the right questions, and then applying the logic for problem solving. Most important, this is, like I said, logical, not just emotional. So it's a combination of it. So if that is what is critical thinking, then, sorry, I don't know why I'm having challenges with PPT of all the things. 3 steps for critical thinking is to be aware of the assumptions we are making while we are solving for the problem, right? And then make those assumptions explicit, and then assessing, are those assumptions valid or not valid, by asking, does it make sense? Do we really understand the fitment? What conditions is it true? What conditions these assumptions are not true? Right? What happens typically when we all have our own experiences. We have our history that each one of us are associated with, and we have certain judgments and which are based on how we have grown up and what values we've imbibed, what beliefs we have, who do we look up to as role models, and what have we inculcated from them. Based on these, we react in a certain way, right? What does that mean, right? We have a mental model in our head based on these experience or how we value system and all of those. We behave in a certain way. We act based on that, and this results yields us to a outcome, and that reinforces our belief. So it's a cyclic thing which goes hand in hand, which is what I've shown on the right hand side. Now it's a question to all. The question is, imagine a scenario where if I ask you what is the color of the sky, what would your answer be?
Normally people say blue.
Blue.
Yeah.
And that's a valid answer.
Right.
Yeah, but normally we say blue, but depending on whether it is sunset or sunrise, it's a different color. Depending on whether it is rainy season, it's it's darker shade, grayish.
Yeah.
So it really, basically we have to really go beyond, but we have tuned into a few things because when we were growing up, we were told blue is the sky color of the sky, right? So we have a certain mental model that is embedded. Similarly, the way we react, right? For example, if I say, imagine a scenario where it's going to snow. I'm sure the reactions are going to be different, right?
Okay.
If you're grown up in an area where snow is rare, it's an excitement, so the behavior is different. and the outcome is different. So I would look forward to go and build a snowman, or, if somebody who likes snow, the behavior and result is I like snow and I look forward to skiing. But if I hate snow, then I only think of, okay, now I have to shovel the snow, there would be traffic and things like that. So each one of us behave differently. And that is what I'm trying to essentially tell you is there is a certain assumption and bias for our decisioning making. So going back to this, the 3-step, we need to be aware of these assumptions that we are making so that it's not clouding our decision while we are doing the problem solving. Right? Then again, if we look at the ladder of influence, we all observe something, and based on our belief system, we actually select a particular set of data because that's what we believe in, and then add meaning to it, which we make it personalized, add it as add layer of assumption to it, and we conclude, right? And we act on it. This is called the ladder of influence. If I just take, for example, let's say I have given some work to somebody. They have not submitted the work. They are, let's say, I'll just pick up some name from the nothing against anybody. Let's say Akhilesh is somebody. I had asked Akhilesh to finish an assignment. He did not finish it, and he did not even tell me that he's not finished it, but he's just sick next day and did not return. So my observation is Akhilesh did not submit the assignment, and he is giving sickness as an excuse. And that's the data I actually select. Sickness is an excuse for not submitting the assignment. And the meaning is Akhilesh is probably lying to me, right? And then I make an assumption that maybe Akhilesh is not interested in doing this assignment, and conclude saying that I should not, let Akhilesh take it easy, or I should not trust Akhilesh to do the assignment next time. And then I actually believe I should not give additional responsibility to Akhilesh. And then I conclude, or my action would be, I would be really curt to Akhilesh or take stricter actions against deadlines for Akhilesh. But then my bias here, right, and which is essentially what we need to avoid, is I'm making a lot of observation based on a few things that I've observed and based on the sampling of the data that I've taken. And this is absolutely what we should be avoiding. This ladder, by the way, was devised by a person called Peter Sanger long time back, and that still holds good, right? So essentially, when we are solving and we are thinking critically, we should stop, slow down and think if our observation and our assumptions are right. Is it valid? And then have an open dialogue, which is inquire. I would then, I should ideally be asking Akhilesh, what happened? Why did you not? Right? Then maybe I realized Akhilesh was really sick and Akhilesh had left a note to me, which I did not see, because I am just assumed Akhilesh has not submitted. And then communicating what I am thinking also very clearly, so that Akhilesh is also clear that I've made these assumptions about him, which I will correct, or which, we need to build trust on, right? So we need to avoid these pitfalls when we are actually doing critical thinking for problem solving. Now, typically, this is called Bloom's taxonomy. Now, this is for education pedagogy. There is here come up with the taxonomy where, if you look at how the whole education system works, right? We are supposed to remember a few things, value of pi, or, atomic number. You're supposed to just remember and duplicate it, define it, Newton's law, just memorize it, right? And then understand what actually atomic number means. How do I do the valency, or how do I make sure Newton's law is interpreted in a certain way? What does it mean to me? And then apply it when it comes to newer situation. And based on my application, analyze what happened, evaluate, and then may take a decision, and then create newer work. This is a whole, taxonomy of how we learn. And this is our basic thinking process. Now, if we apply it to critical thinking, remembering is level 1, and then the level 6. This is exactly what I said, right? Produce the new thing, which is creating, is where we should be, because when we get to application or problem solving, we are not trying to learn it then and remember it. We are actually remembering what we have already learned and applying those to come up with a solution. That is how we are doing the critical thinking, and this is a natural process that happens, right? Any questions so far? I'm happy to take questions in between, by the way, if any of you have the question. So going back, sorry, was there a question?
No, nothing. I just said nobody in the chat box also no questions. So it is very clear, maybe.
Sure. So going back to our avoiding the pitfall, so we are supposed to explain, understand each other mutually, observe, talk, have the communication, inquire, and then have the advocacy, right? And this critical thinking is required no matter where you are, right? Whether it is at home, in life, in your workplace, in your college, it is very much required, right? For example, again, I'll give a couple of examples, right? Now we have learned Martin Luther King's speech, I have a dream. Statement, we remember that statement, I have a dream. Why is it so important to the nation, right? Why is that particular theme or the statement very, very relevant? And then we are supposed to basically, we know the statement was done, right? That is the first part of it, which is remembering. Then comprehending or understanding why the statement is great, right? Why is it that is, like I said, very, very important for the nation? And then applying it, saying that how can I, if this vision statement was I have a dream, how can I actually make this a reality, right? And then analyzing, if Martin Luther King was still alive, how would he have accomplished that, right? Basically, you're analyzing the whole thing. And then synthesizing and evaluating, saying, what would a country look like without racism? How would Martin Luther King react in the current situation? And then come up with a thesis statement, which is your creation, saying, why was it important to the nation, right? So you're basically coming up with your own creation. That is how the whole ladder works. Now, when we are talking about critical thinking, there are 3 aspects. Actually, there is 4, but there is one which is systematic thinking, which is part of creative thinking. So it's abstract thinking, it's creative thinking, and then a communicative thinking. So I'll briefly talk about each of those as well. I wish this had worked, but then anyways. So when you see Statue of Liberty, your natural thinking, this is supposed to be animation, but when you see, you actually think it is Statue of Liberty, right? But in an abstract thinking, you don't think of it just as Statue of Liberty, but what it represents, right? It represents freedom, justice, and liberty. So that is what abstract thinking is all about. Now, abstract thinking is the ability to absorb information from our senses and make connection to the real world. So it's basically our ability to understand concepts that are real, such as freedom, and then which are directly not concrete physical object, but is tied to the real world through experiences. So basically, it's our ability to absorb information and then make connection to the wider world. Right? If you have to come up with a theory to explain abstract thinking, the theory may be based on concrete data, but it has to be still abstract, right? So you have to use your imagination. You have to use metaphors and analogies, because these are abstract analogies or metaphors. They create relationship between ideas and then make it more abstract while it is more concrete as well. I hope I'm making sense, but happy to answer any questions if there are any, right? Now, the creative thinking, can you just give me 1 minute?
Sure.
Sorry about that. Okay, so creative thinking is actually thinking outside the box. I think, like one of you said in the beginning, it's how do we innovate, right? So if we look at types of creative thinking, it's divergent thinking. Divergent thinking means generating many different ideas. So that's why it's called exaggeration. You just throw as many ideas about the topic in a short period as much as possible. It actually boils down to breaking down the topic into various parts to gain insight into various aspects of the topic itself. Typically, divergent thinking is spontaneous because when you have to come up with as many ideas, it has to be really spontaneous. There is no structure, it's free flowing. So the ideas generated are random, it's unorganized. Following divergent thinking, though, the ideas and information has to be organized and converge the ideas, right? Putting basically many ideas together to see if there are duplicated ideas which need to be converged. And then what we have as lateral thinking, which is the outside thinking outside the box, and then the whole creative thinking element itself, which is aesthetic thinking, and systems thinking. I will elaborate this a little bit more. And then the radical insight, which is the inspirational thinking. Now, if I look at creative thinking, there are many techniques for creative thinking, but most commonly used one are brainstorming and 6-hat thinking. Now, brainstorming is, all of you have used this technique. Brainstorming is actually evaluating the ideas, open discussions, but there are certain rules to the brainstorming, right? I'll briefly talk about rules of brainstorming, what is the method of brainstorming, and what are the types of brainstorming itself. From the rules perspective, you have to focus on quantity. Like I said, brainstorming is more like a divergent thinking where you're just coming up with many ideas, lot of quantitative ideas leads to qualitative idea. You've heard that quantity breeds quality. So many ideas will actually give us concrete quality ideas in the session. So while you are doing the brainstorming session, every idea is good. Nobody should be criticizing any ideas. And then if there is abnormal ideas, out of the box ideas, non-logical ideas, all ideas are welcome. So welcome the unusual ideas as well. And then combine these and improve the idea, right? Which is the convergent. Now, from the method itself of brainstorming, you have to first set the problem. You have to make the problem statement clear. Create a background information or set the context. You have to select the participants who will participate in this brainstorming, either sampling or based on the background, and then create a list of lead questions. So obviously, if you don't have those lead questions, nobody will start the session. So you create those lead sessions and keep it ready, and then conduct the session itself. Now, types of brainstorming, there are many, something called webbing, Venn diagram, and all of those. But if time permits, I'll of course talk about it, right? The 6-hat thinking, this is extensively used in all the black belts, yellow belts, green belts that you can think of, and from a Six Sigma perspective. Now, 6-hat thinking is when you're wearing a blue hat, everybody in the room talks only about the process. Nobody talks about anything else. When you're having a white hat, so you give time for blue hat. Everybody talks about the process, and then you take out the blue hat. Then nobody talks about the process. Everything is done, right? Now take out the white hat. Everybody wears the white hat, which means everybody is looking at the fact. Everybody is looking at the information. And this is used extensively in engineering, manufacturing, in commerce also, when you are looking at the whole taxation element where, you have to make decisions, right? Of course, you have to get to the creative hat, you have to get to the benefits hat, you have to be cautious. Everybody has to talk about the pitfalls, everybody has to talk about the feelings. Question, is there a method, or is there a particular color we start with and end with? Just looking at this. Anybody can answer. Okay, so we start with white, which is the fact, right? Everybody talks about the fact. And then we start with green, we get creative. And then we start listing the benefits. And then we start with what are the pitfalls, which is the black. And then we say, what are our feelings about it? And then we get to the process part of it, right? That's the whole flow, so to say. Okay, so the systemic thinking, which I said I will come back to in shortly, I'm taking it as a separate one because it's a very important element of creative thinking. Everybody has heard of iceberg model, which is when in the sea you'll only see the small part of iceberg, but underneath there is a huge ice itself, right? Creativity is just connecting these things. So it's basically, if it is looking at it holistically from a systematic perspective. Now, the foundation aspect of systems thinking is the synthesis of several elements, events, patterns, structures, and all of those, and bringing it together, and which basically transcends to a significant sum of independent elements, which is the synergy that we talk about, right? So basically it's a whole as perfect, and getting to the detailed level, understanding what is the pattern, what is the structure, what is the mental model assumption, and then putting it holistically. That's what is system thinking all about. And that's a very important, and iceberg model talks in detail about it, right? So we looked at abstract thinking, we looked at creative thinking. We are now going to talk about communicative thinking. Now, more often than not, we do all the work, we put all the creativity required, but we often don't think about how do we need to communicate this. And that's a very, very, very important element, because everything that we do, we need to be able to communicate very, very well. The reason is, if you don't communicate your basic assumptions, then it might be an outlier in some aspects. People will assume it works for everything else. How you solve for it, what you solve for, stating that what is very, very important. And communication is the skeletal structure of critical thinking. Because when the person thinks from the inner core and puts a structured sentences to it, it actually communicates the whole problem solving capability or the problem solutioning that has been done. Analyzing any situation or condition is achieved because of person's critical thinking capability, right? Lack of effective communication thinking is actually diminishing factor in the capability, right? Because it basically misses out a huge potential that you would have otherwise got. Now, while you're talking about communicative thinking, again, there are a few things. You have to, one of the most important skills of communication and critical thinking is clinching to the point. What are you trying to communicate? What is that one thing that you want to communicate in that presentation? Don't, or in that, while I'm saying presentation, it could be your writing, it could be your oral, but don't deviate away, right? Identifying the problematic statement or a situation, and then thinking of the factors to solve for it without any outside influence can be very hard. But a critical thinker and a good communicator can do that, right? So it's very important that you clinch on to that key point that you want to communicate, whatever is your communication channel. And then obviously non-verbal communication has its pitfalls, but you like to figure out how do you still communicate if it is emails or other things. And while communicating, also ensure you're keeping your controlling your emotions, but while showing your curiosity in it. And how you structure that is a very important thought process that needs to go into your communicative thinking. I'll take a pause here because after this, I will get into a little bit of problem solving. If there are any questions, happy to answer. Happy to answer later as well, but I'll pause for a minute. Okay, so now this model will help you with generating ideas or how what critical thinking needs to be, right? So you describe the problem and then say what, when, who, where, why. What and who, where, the 4 WHs. And then analyze why there's a problem, how it is a problem, and how can that be solved, right? And then come to, okay, what if, so what and what next, right? I'll explain that what if, right? So basically when you're asking what is the problem statement, what is the basic need, and I'll also explain about what if, so what a little bit in couple of slides later. But this whole model of describing problems in what, when, how, where, and then analyzing why and how, and then evaluating what if, so next, what next, is a model that you can use for solving any problem statement through critical thinking. And when I say critical thinking, obviously you are going to assume, and you have to call out saying, what is the assumption? Why is it that it is required? Those things which we talked about are underlying in these elements, but answering these questions will help you generate solutions to the problems, right? And when you're asking these questions of what, when, who, where, obviously you have to ask more of an open-ended question. It can't be yes or no questions, right? Because then you will not get those right answers. So asking the right questions is very important. And if you're having leading questions, make sure it's not really leading. It's a neutral one. Don't have leading question, because then you're fine-tuning your answers to what you want to hear. Instead, make it very, very neutral. And if, for example, don't say question like, oh, are you having issues with customers? Right? It's leading questions. But make it more neutral, saying, what do you think of complaints? Right? Do you really have instead of saying, do you really have a complaint? So questions need to be more of open-ended, neutral, and then primary. When I say primary versus secondary, primary is where it's an exceptional case where you start with closed-ended question and then have a follow-up question, right? For example, did you experience a problem while paying your credit card statement? If the answer is no, then you don't have a follow-up question. But if the answer is yes, then you actually ask, okay, what was the impact of that problem? Or how did you, what was your experience overall, right? And then you get to what, so what, and now what, which is what we saw in the previous slide. Now, what is your basic need? What is the desired outcome we are looking for? What isn't really working in the whole process? What is broken, right? So what? If it is happening this way, so what does it impact? What is the impact? Something is broken. What is the impact of it? If we solve for it, what is the benefits? How significant is the issue? These are so what questions. Then now what? Now, what have we tried already? What have others tried? What are some of the constraints? And then based on that, you can figure out what should be your answer to the problems. That's why asking what, so what next will actually help evaluate the solution you're going to come up with. Now, when you're solving a problem, again, start with defining what is your problem statement. Analyze potential causes for the problem statement, which is what you will do in your what, why, where. Identify possible solutions. Evaluate what is the right solution and select the best solution. Create an implementation plan, implement it, and make sure you communicate, which is what I talked about, communicative skill, right? In short, it is called ideal, identify, define, evaluate, and then make sure you're actually actioning and you are actually leading that or communicating that. Now, there are many, many, many techniques for problem solving. I've just put some of them, not all of them. I'm sure you know most of it, but just to talk about a few, we already talked about the first principle, which is the 5 whys. You ask anybody the 5 whys. Why do I need to eat? Why do I need to sleep at a certain time? What is it that I need to do, right? The 5 whys, what, why, where, what, why, where, I'll have to just go back. Just
When, what,
yeah.
why.
When, yeah, when, what, who, where, why.
Yep.
Those are the 5 questions, right? So if you ask that, and this is very important for you to think about when you go for interviews, typically everybody will try to assess saying, what is your depth, right? You say, I know a topic. And since I heard that it is commerce, if you say, I know accounting very well, or if I master at balance sheet, try to answer all the 5 whys. And that's what your interviewer is actually looking at, right? Because if you know the subject, you should actually be able to explain these things. So before your interview, just make sure you're aware of this. That's very, very important. Okay? Lateral thinking, I think we have already talked about, but there's a common, sorry, I think I missed the rubber duck, but rubber duck problem is actually what is called, sorry?
So yeah, the second one is missed.
Yeah. So rubber duck is basically, it refers to a story in one book called Pragmatic Programmer, where, the programmer is supposed to take this duck with him and carry around the duck and debug the code that they have written, right? For solving the problem. So if there is a bug in the system, you basically explain that code or whatever is the problem to the duck. And that's why it's called rubber duck problem, right? It's basically forcing somebody to think through and go line by line and explain. And that's very difficult to do unless you know the subject, or you actually get into the detail. That's basically rubber duck problem. Lateral thinking, like we said before, it's out of the box thinking. And there is a very famous, I'm sure all of you have heard of it, which is pretend that you're driving a car in the middle of a thunderstorm, and you happen to see 3 people on the side of the road. One of them is a very old woman, and another is a friend who has once saved your life. The other is a very romantic person you've dreamt of being with that person, which is a lifetime opportunity. It's a 2-seater car for whatever reason, and you can only pick up one person. So the typical question, example of lateral thinking is, how do you, who would you help? And then there are many, many combinations and permutations to that answer. But lateral thinking suggests that if you want the best of all the options, you evaluate all the options, but the best solution would be you give the car to your friend and ask him or her to pick up the old lady while you go with the other person, right? That's a very out of the box thinking, so to say.
Yeah.
Then
in Indian scenario, we can all have, in a single car,
Yeah, in Indian scenario, there is hardly any 2-seater car.
Yeah. Even if there is a space of two person.
Oh yes. We can adjust.
We'll have a jugaad. Like we are having a jugaad right now, na? We are able to see the full screen. So chalta hai. Aa jao, chalo, le lo. Having that kind.
So actually, the Indian system is jugaad system, right? That's where we are stuck, unfortunately. Okay.
That
so
is
the gap analysis.
We are more of Atiti Devo Bhava. Anybody comes in, we try to facilitate, help them, and we put them across. So that's why.
I think it's also more of survival. We had to survive, so we did jugaad and we continue to.
Right.
Anyway, so the next one is really the gap analysis. You basically understand the current state, what is happening now, what is keeping us, what is the gap, right? What is keeping us from getting to the desired state, and what would be the desired outcome. Analyze that and say, how do we get there? What are our roadblockers? What is the critical path to get there? What are the dependencies? So basically, as the name suggests, identify the current scenario, what is our end state, and what is the gap. Right? Trial and error, you basically try out different methods. I think invention of light bulb is a good example of that. Right? Sorry, just go to the next one. So again, I am sure all of you have used some of these problem solving tools, but I will briefly touch upon this. I'm almost 100% sure you've used most of these, right? Fishbone diagrams are a basic common problem solving tool because the name fishbone comes because you take the problem statement, you look at all of the possible root causes, lay it out, and then it's also called Ishikawa, right? So for example, in a manufacturing scenario, you would look at what is the machine, what are the dependencies, where would the problem be, methods, materials, what should be the measurement, is it meeting the measurement, what is the nature of material, what is the maintenance that is required. All of those you draw out as the fishbone itself, and that's why it's commonly known as fishbone diagram, right? You lay out and then we start mapping each of those, which lead to the solutioning. Flowchart, again, I'm sure all of you have used, which is start and then you say, okay, if I have to make a decision to ship an item to the customer, we start, then we say add to the cart, check out the items, you add the shipping info, you make the payment goes through, then you send the order to the warehouse, payment doesn't go through, then you go back and communicate about the payment error. And then after the valid payment, when the warehouse gets the information, the pack order, check quality, and then if the quality is not good, they send it back to the warehouse. If it is good, then you actually ship it to the customer. Right? That's a typical flowchart example that I'm providing. And then the strategy maps are, it's again a problem solving. Basically, this is based on hierarchical system. Thoughts and ideas can be arranged in a single page to flesh out any potential resolution. Once you have a few tactics you feel are worth exploring, for example, that's a SWOT example. SWOT analysis is a good example of this, right? You put what is strength, what is weakness, what are the threats, what are the potential, you lay it out. And then you say, identify some of those and then say, okay, now these are worth exploring more. And then you put, okay, who are our partners? What are the activities that we need to look at? What is the relationship mapping? What segment we need to look at? So you basically explore more from doing that. And then the mind maps, I'm sure you did that from the time you started learning. You had mnemonics, you started mapping, saying, if this scenario happens, then you branch out and say what else is happening, right? That's the mental map. It's a very good decision-making technique though, right? Because you basically say, okay, my problem statement, what are my brainstorming options, what decision I need to make, and what are the next steps? Because you are laying out all of these different things that we talked about as individual elements. It actually helps in putting all of those as a decision-making element itself. And then the idea map is very similar, but you basically take one element of your mental map and then lay out the details of it. Right? And then the concept map is basically you take a concept and then blow out the concept, right? For example, if I have to say customer or customer feedback. Now, the customer feedback might be positive, might be negative. Positive is one, and then in the negative, then I say negative is because they were unable to make payment or because they did not get the support. Now, if they did not get the support that they were looking for, is it not really readily available in FAQ? What kind of relationship do I draw between the solution servicing and then the FAQ, or the service provider or our customer was not provided the service properly? What kind of relationship do we then? Then again, there are many tools available, which is software tools like the Mind Manager or the charting software that are available in the market that one can use as well. But I would suggest that for problem solving, you start with whiteboarding. You can use any of the techniques, but start with whiteboarding. That's the best way to start, right? And then there are certain standards that you have to follow, which is clarity, accuracy, precision, relevance, depth, breadth, and logic and fairness. This is basic standard you need to follow while you're doing the critical thinking. The last page I have, and then we'll open for question. And this is an activity. I don't know again how many of you are able to interact. If you are given if you're asked, do you want to be one horse-sized duck or 100 duck-sized horse? I want you to think through different elements and say, what is your decision? It's either one horse-sized duck or 100 duck-sized horse. What would you want to be?
It depends on the problem, right? First, we need to understand the problem. So
yeah. I mean, you're given an option that do you want to be a one horse-sized duck or 100 duck-sized horse? Right?
Correct. Let's say there are some challenges that we have being a duck. Duck cannot run as fast as the horses. So if my problem is that I want somebody who can run faster, then I would choose, horses, many horses. Again, so it depends on the problem. Based on the problem statement, then we will be able to decide whether I need 100 duck-sized horses or one horse-sized duck.
Absolutely. And then there are many, many answers to this, right? 100 horses might be very difficult to control, but I can control one duck.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Or
to be
like you
different,
said,
one is fine. I mean, a duck with the size of a horse. Wow. So,
yeah, creative thinking there.
Yeah.
Right. 2-leg versus 4-leg, like Muthu, sir, you said, how duck can't run faster, horse can run faster.
Right.
So there are many ways with thinking that can go into. But what I would want to anybody listening is really apply all of the techniques that I talked about brainstorming, decision making, and then coming to a result, right? Because what we are doing now is first level thinking. Some things are very obvious to us, and we are not doing the 5 whys. We are not really thinking about what are some of the facts, right? So this would be an activity to think about and apply all of the things that we talked about in the last 1 hour, and see whatever decision, how would you communicate the result or the problem you've solved using some of these techniques. That would be an activity worth exploring. Right. I'm sure it'll be interesting. Absolutely. With that, I end my topics that I had, because literally that's what I wanted to cover in the 1 hour plus I had. But happy to take any questions.
All right. Let us quickly see if somebody's asked a question. There is one person, Dr. Smith has asked the difference between abstract thinking and perception.
Sure. So abstract thinking, I think I covered a little bit, right? Abstract thinking is basically you're taking the fact still. It's very concrete fact. Statue of Liberty, for example, stands for freedom, stands for justice. But perception is my opinion. It's not fact-based. That is basically the difference.
All right. Right. Okay, so let us see if anybody else has any questions. I think in the chat box, only one question was there. Anybody else has got any questions, please do feel free to, unmute yourself and you can ask the question. Let me also share a screen meanwhile.
This abstract thinking. Hello.
Yeah.
Abstract thinking is something which you abstract. When you make a research, you abstract some of the decisions. Is that what you
Yes.
do on the abstract? And when you think, at that time you think of a lot of things. Suppose
yes.
I'm thinking of a subject of supply chain. I think of the abstract of the supply chain. And then I put it into action so that abstract will be the incidence which is happening on a supply chain. Is it correct?
Absolutely. It's absolutely correct. It's concrete things that are part of supply chain, but not boxed thinking of supply chain has to happen this way, right?
And one more thing, in supply chain, it's difficult to think of critical thinking. It is very difficult to think of critical thinking because everything is sudden. Mm-hmm. You just think of the distribution of the COVID vaccination. Never anybody thought about critical thinking.
No. So critical thinking can be applied. I think COVID was a scenario which disrupted every industry beyond anybody could have imagined. We call that as a black swan event. Typically, those are not, these are rare events, as rare as a black swan, right? That's why it's called black swan event. But if you see, because we have been able to think critically, we have actually been able to now introduce GPS or tracking, RFIDs, all of those in the supply chain, where we can actually figure out the inventory. When the inventory goes down, how much inventory should be maintained, which is a huge investment otherwise. The warehouse investment comes down. The supplier details are very much available. Where is your shipment is available. All of those which are part of the supply chain is very much enabled or made easier because we have been able to think what is the problem statement, break it into smaller pieces, come up with solutions for each of these, and enable technology enablement, making those happen, which is the
But
solution.
there's no time to think of critical thinking. The time was very limited.
In case of COVID, you're saying, right?
Yeah.
No, COVID was, like I said, a black swan event. What I'm telling here is a normal situation when we
in
have
the normal situation, you can have the critical thinking.
Yeah.
Anyway,
because,
thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Anybody else has got any questions? If not, we will next move on. All right. There is a feedback form that is provided in the chat box in the Zoom. So once probably you fill that feedback form, you will get the e-certificate for attending this session. That is participation certificate actually. Right. So if any of you wanted to give a feedback, you can quickly unmute yourself and give the feedback. Meanwhile, I would wanted to take a minute to let Ms. Saraswati Ramachandran know that it was very, very detailed, very nice, and very well put across. I really enjoyed. It is like I remember that 5 W's and 1 H. We sometimes call it 4 wives and 1 husband. So that is easily understandable, easily rememberable. So that's how it is. That's a nice point, and a lot of tools that you spoke about, and a lot of it was more organized, more planned well. Thank you so much for having created such a wonderful session and being very nice, cool, calm, and answering all the questions. Thank you so much, Ms. Saraswati Ramachandran.
Thank you, Muthu. Really happy to be part of this session. Again, if there are any questions later, if anybody sends you the question, happy to answer them offline as well.
Sure.
And one request is I kept saying asking relevant questions is very much the beginning of critical thinking. So you should not hesitate to ask questions. So if there are any, please feel free to ask at any point of time.
Sure. Sure. Meanwhile, may I request Assistant Professor Jayant Hanumanthaya to give the vote of thanks?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Good evening, one and all. My name is Jayant, Assistant Professor, Post-Graduation Department of Commerce and Management. Deem it a great honor to propose the vote of thanks for this wonderful occasion. Let me thank Almighty
Jayant,
God.
you are not audible. Mr. Jayant, you are not audible.
No, we
Sir,
can hear. We can hear.
Sir, now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Let me thank Almighty God for making this event a grand success. And my heartfelt thanks to Saraswati Ramachandra ma'am for giving an wonderful insights on critical thinking. To put in a very simple phrase, ma'am, it was all about great minds discuss ideas, average mind discuss events, and small minds discuss people. So it was very easier to know a full form of PACE here. Why? Because P stands for problem solving, analysis, creative thinking, interpretation, evaluation, and reasoning. So it was very happy to learn something better out of how critical thinking will be very helpful in this great mindset. So thank you so much, ma'am. And I thank our director, Dr. Raji Pillai madam, and principal Dr. S.N. Venkatesh sir for all the support given for organizing these type of events. I thank Shiv Prasad sir and the whole team of Disciples Group for your extended support in all our educational events and as well as programs. Thanks a lot, sir. And I thank all the participants, delegates, and our students for the kind and patience listening. Thank you so much. Ma'am, once again, thanks a lot for giving us a very good insights. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. And I really hope it was useful.
Yes, ma'am.
Happy
Yes,
to
ma'am.
share more insights or answer any questions.
Sure. Thank you. And once again, sir, Shiv Prasad sir, Muthukumar sir, and Suresh sir, and for the whole Disciples Group. So we are very much thankful to you for making sure to have a very good collaboration with our college, that is Sheshadipuram First Grade College. And I thank our beloved director and as well as principal sir for making sure the event to come in a very great way. So thank you so much, everyone. Thank you all the participants.
Thank you, Mr. Jayant.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
It's our pleasure. And meanwhile, Dr. Smita has told, very nice session. Thank you, madam. And yeah, all right. There are, there are other folks also. Dr. Shamanta Kumar, very good discussion. Nice. Thank you, sir. And one more, Mr. Jacob is told, thank you very much. A lot of appreciation is coming in. Thank you. Meanwhile, let's move forward. May I request all of you to kindly, switch off the video so that we can play a national anthem. We'll have to stand up as a process. We play a national anthem at the end, so we can stand up and probably, pay tribute to it. I'll move on to the next slide. Yeah.
जनगण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड उत्कल बंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उज्जल जलधि तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मांगे गाहे तव जय गाथा जन गण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे.
Thank you. Yeah. So for those of you who wants to connect with us, you can write to us. It is dillearningforum@gmail.com. Also, you can visit us on disciplesindia.in. We would probably some of the photos, if in case any photos are there, we upload it in the Facebook Disciples India group. You can go there and download your pictures. And if any of you wanted to be a member of maybe become a member of Disciples India group, you can reach out to any of us. The names and numbers are put across here. You can take a screenshot and probably you can reach out to us. We can put you onto the group. All right. You can also write to us on dillearningforum@gmail.com. Thank you very much. I leave the screen for next 5 seconds so that people can make a note of numbers or probably take a screenshot of it. Thank you very much. We enjoyed the sessions thoroughly and it was very nice. And I hope it was a lot of inputs for all the folks who attended and make a good use of it. Thank you, Ms. Saraswati Ramachandra. It was a wonderful session.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah. Have a great day, folks. On a count of 5, I will be, stop sharing the screen and close the session. Thank you.